Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 3-1 podcast here with Coach Mac. I am your host, Mac Alexander. This podcast will dive in deep with some of the most entertaining guests from a different variety of occupations and get them to walk us through different seasons in their lives. The name of this podcast comes from Ecclesiastes 3:1, which says, "For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven." All of our guests have had many wins and losses, triumphs and trials, ups and downs. But all these seasons have made them who they are and ultimately led them to be successful. The stories that they tell will surely be entertaining as well as encouraging to all of you out there. On the podcast today for the Ep.2, we have Mookie Carlile. Mookie is a defensive GA working with the secondary at Tulsa University. He is going into his second year coaching, right? Or third year?
Third.
Third year coaching at Tulsa. He's a young coach, and we met for about a 3 week stint and became good friends after that. So, welcome to this podcast, Coach Mookie.
Thanks for having me, Mac. I'm honored.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's get right into it. All right, Mook. Tell the audience about where you grew up.
So I grew up in Stephenville, Texas. It's about an hour southwest of Fort Worth. It was a small town. It's growing quite a bit though. It's where Tarleton State is, which is where me and Mac met. And so I was born and raised there, and did all my sports in high school. Did all of them: baseball, football, basketball, and just been in sports my whole life pretty much.
Okay. Okay. Tell the listeners a little bit about Stephenville, Texas. That I know I've lived there for it was only about 8 months. I was born in Arlington, which is about an hour away, but I never heard of Stephenville until I got the job at Tarleton State. So for the audience, just kind of tell them more about Stephenville, what makes Stephenville special and unique.
What makes Stephenville special, I guess, is it's the cowboy capital of the world. So
Yes, it is.
I think I think I might be wrong on this, but I think like a lot of world champions in rodeo live in Stephenville, which is why they call it that. A lot of Hall of Famers and stuff like that. And actually, growing up, my dad, he's a big team roper, and I was born and bred to be a rodeo guy on the circuit, but sports kind of took over. So that's kind of Steveville's claim to fame. It's a real small town. When I was playing and when I was growing up, Friday nights it's a typical small town Texas story where we had more fans at our high school games than they did at Tarleton State for a long time, and probably still do. It's just your typical kind of small town area where Friday nights kind of rules.
Mm-hmm. So you basically lived out Friday Night Lights, the movie, every single Friday, didn't you?
Yeah, not as much drama, but it was the same premise for sure.
Where did you guys play? Did you guys play at Tarleton Stadium?
We played at Tarleton Stadium. We didn't have our own, and that was even back in the Bryles days when they were there. With Steveville still doesn't have their own stadium, so we always played on their field.
Gotcha. Okay. So growing up in a small town in Texas, you obviously love football. Did you know at an early age that that's what you wanted to do and go play college football one day?
I knew, or on an early age, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. That was my love. It probably, honestly, deep down, probably still is my favorite sport. I love baseball. I love going to games, and I was really good at baseball. I was good at everything I did growing up, but I knew once I got into kind of junior high and high school, baseball was still at the forefront, but I also was really good at football and probably a little bit better at football. And then hit about my sophomore year after my sophomore year, started getting, all the mail and stuff from the big universities. I really didn't even understand the recruiting process at all. College, growing up in Stephenville, only thing you cared about was Stephenville high school football. Everything else, like, yeah, you had your teams you root for in college, but I never thought past college. All I thought about was being a yellow jacket playing football on Friday nights. And then all of a sudden this mail and stuff and calls and everything were starting to come in. So it kind of eyes, and then I figured out like football is what I wanted to do for sure.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I love it. What position do you play in baseball?
I did. It depended on kind of the age point, but once I got kind of into high school and junior high, I was either third base, outfield, or pitcher.
Hmm. Could you throw some heat? What was your favorite pitch?
It was just a two-seam fastball. And when I was a freshman, I got clocked at like an 89, and then my sophomore year of football, I think it's called sublex my right shoulder, and I just wasn't able to throw it the same again. I was still able to pitch, but I wasn't able to do it quite as well. But at that point too is when football kind of became the forefront of what I wanted to do and knew I wanted to go play college ball.
I got you. Man, 89, that's impressive. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
I was able to. I was pretty lengthy as a freshman and could just like I said, baseball is what I focused on. I pitched a lot, did a lot of private lessons and stuff because that was my main focus. So it was something I was proud of.
Gotcha. All right, last Stephenville question. Where's your favorite place to eat in Stephenville?
It's got to be Jake and Dorothy's. It's
Really?
It's old cafe. Did you go to Jake and Dorothy's?
I never went there. I never went to Jake and Dorothy's.
And there's another restaurant about 30 minutes away called Mary's that has a good chicken fried steak and everyone loves it, but it's not as good as Jake and Dorothy's. That's my family took me there. My dad takes me there. We still go there. Best chicken fried steak you'll ever have. Hand cut waffle fries. It was on the cover of Texas Monthly too back in the day. That's how good it was.
Wow. Yeah, why? I'll have to get on my wife. I don't know why we never went.
I'm pretty sure I told you to a couple times.
You probably did. Yeah. We weren't together for long, so. Okay, going into college. So, talk me through kind of your recruiting process and kind of how it was for you coming out of high school, especially being a small town. A lot of people don't necessarily recruit small towns like that very hard because there's typically, there's 1 to 2 guys maybe every year, if not less. So kind of walk me through the recruiting process, like kind of what you learned and what led you going to UTEP.
Well, so like I said, in my sophomore years when I started getting my first mailer was from Oklahoma, and as a sophomore going into my junior year. And then started getting invites to go to games starting my junior year and went to a lot of those. My first one was actually Oklahoma in 2012. And then I got a lot of those. And then Tech was calling me and I would talk to Texas A&M, like a lot of Big 12 schools were the big guys recruiting me. Tech said they were going to offer, but then Tuberville left to go to Cincinnati in 2012. So the new staff wasn't a big fan of me. And then UTEP came in and offered in May of 2013, which was the end of my junior year. And that ended up being, well, besides Tarleton State, ended up being my only true Division I offer. The school that actually talked to me the most often and I had a better relationship with was Texas. And partially that was me more recruiting them. I kept emailing Dwayne Aquino all the time and messaging him, and we actually had a decent correspondence going on. But then Mac Brown got fired that year, the end of my senior year in December. But I committed to UTEP back in July 13, and then ended up signing with them and became a mighty minor.
Okay, UTEP, University of Texas, El Paso. What was it like going from Stephenville down to El Paso? I've been to El Paso. Driving on that highway, there's that fence right there, and then just little. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, the sun's out all the time, and the Sun Bowl. I've never been there, but it's just pictures and videos I've seen. Looks pretty cool. What was it like in El Paso?
Well, so like I said, it's the cowboy capital of the world. So small town, bunch of white people. I mean, then you went to El Paso, which was the borderland. From being the majority to being the minority, and that came from being in El Paso and being on the football team too, because I mean, everybody I played with I grew up with since that we grew up together our whole lives. And then all of a sudden going to El Paso, where I'd go to the grocery store and the cashier would laugh at me and say, "You're not from here, are you?" I guess I have a Texas country accent, and I'd go, "No, I'm here." And I got it took me a while to get used to hearing Spanish all the time, because everywhere you went they were speaking Spanish. And my sophomore year when I moved off of campus, I would drive by Juarez every morning, and I was 200 yards from the border every day, and I eventually got used to it, but it was definitely a culture shock. And it was a good place, a lot of good food for sure.
Yeah.
But I did struggle with kind of being away from home and being in like that mountain desert area because Stephenville, trees, grass, rolling plains, and you go to the mountain, the high desert where it's like you said, the sun shining all the time, and I like cloudy, rainy weather, so it didn't blend with me very well. But I was just being picky.
Yeah, El Paso's a lot like where I grew up in Colorado. It's very like East Texas and down there is very similar to Western Colorado.
Yeah.
At least what I've been told. So I'm sorry you didn't like the dryness, the mountain air and all the sun. You need to come live up in Washington with me to get all your rain that you want.
I would love that.
So, what was it like playing there? What was what was your experience playing there? What was that like?
So it was, being at a small school. I mean, you were the best. I was the only kid in my whole class at Stephenville, any sport, if I remember correctly, that was offered a D1 scholarship and went and played D1.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from being a big fish in my little pond to at UTEP, who was a program that was struggling when I got there. And all of a sudden you get surrounded by grown men that, from Houston, from Dallas, JUCO kids from California that I'm not 2 inches taller than everybody anymore. I'm the same height or shorter depending on what's going on. I was the biggest safety there.
Yeah.
And I lacked in speed when it came to everything else. But our head coach, Sean Kugler, who I respect a lot, he was an awesome guy to play for. I mean, I would run through a brick wall for him. Everybody would, even if you didn't like him, because it was the way he just treated us. He treated us like grown men and made us accountable for everything. Mm-hmm. And I love that part of it. It was awesome playing for him. We ran a tough program. We were tackling every day, banging every day, spring ball, banging every day in fall camp. And even on Monday or Tuesday mornings practice, we're tackling in season. And it was tough. A lot of work. Our defense was complicated, but I loved playing in it. It was fun. And love getting to travel, get to go see some cool places. Conference USA, it's not that exciting of a conference when it comes to location, but competition. And I liked playing for them a lot. I struggled with being in El Paso, though, just personally. I liked the football aspect, and I ultimately transferred. But looking back, I wish I'd have been a little more mature, and I wish my parents would have maybe stamped their foot down a little bit harder, saying, hey, you need to stay and at least give it one more year, and there were some other factors to it because my grades were good, but my advisor messed up my schedule where I was supposed to graduate in 2.5 years. I got pushed back to 3.5 years. So there's a couple factors in it, but the football aspect of it, I loved being a part of that program.
Okay. I love that. Now you probably know more about the whole transfer process. That's just a part of college football now, which is good. And I don't think it's any different. You look at everyone's transferring nowadays, but I think kids have always transferred. It's just now it's easier to transfer. So it's out there for the public and everyone can look too. But a little off subject. But okay, so you transferred. You went to TCU, correct?
Yep, TCU.
You went from El Paso and you went to downtown Fort Worth, TCU, private Christian school.
Funky town.
Yeah. Fort Worth's good. I got family. My aunt and uncle live. It's literally like 3 minutes away from the TCU's campus. It's just right there. So I know, my uncle is a big TCU guy. So you can actually kind of see their stadium from their backyard. It's pretty awesome. But
that's awesome.
Talk me through TCU. What was that like?
Well, so I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. So the reason I transferred, and my dream school was always the University of Texas. That was dream school. So that's when they were kind of recruiting me a little bit in high school. I was all in for that. I applied there, and of course they denied me, which hell, I think I had a 4.0, whatever it was, I wasn't good enough. So I didn't get Texas. Well, as soon as I figured out Texas didn't accept me, I applied to Baylor and TCU. And because I had an old teammate that played at Baylor, and this was before all the stuff went down there in 16. So this was in spring of 16.
Mm-hmm.
And TCU accepted me 2 or 3 weeks later. And I was like, I told my mom I got accepted, and my grandparents are going to help me pay for it because obviously it's a private. And Coach Cumbie, Sonny Cumbie, he was at Texas Tech when he was recruiting me. And then now he ended up going to TCU. So that was kind of my connection there. And the reason I left UTEP was because and I know why now, but going through that recruiting process in high school, I had all the big schools. I mean, I went to Oklahoma State, went to Tech, went to A&M, went to Baylor, had opportunities to go to K-State and LSU and for game visits. I got to see that whole atmosphere. So that's what I wanted. And I also thought in my head I was better than UTEP, and I wanted to go. I couldn't sit there and not try to go Big 12 and play at a Power 5. That was just something that was stuck in my head, whether bad, wrong, good, or indifferent. So that's why I went to TCU. And first day at TCU, I was obviously going as a walk-on, backpedaling like I've done a million times in my life, and tore the ligament on my arch. Is a Liz Frank injury. And the first time I've I don't even think I've broken a bone yet in my life, and that thing popped. And so I had to get MRI. It was a centimeter away from having to have surgery. And because I was a walk-on, they had to cut me and say, come back in the spring. And so I was essentially a normal college student for the first semester at TCU. And at first I kind of liked it because I was able to relax and just kind of chill. But after about 2 or 3 weeks, I hated doing nothing in my, not that a normal college student doesn't do anything, but I was used to doing sports and having that structure and doing all that. So I hated that, and got back on the team in spring and got to see Gary Patterson coach, and he's definitely a character, but I like the way he coached too though, but did that for the spring ball. And then after that, and decided to end up transferring to Tarleton State with Coach Todd Witten, who recruited me when he was at UTEP.
All right, so I want you to kind of take me, because now we know this. Sometimes there's a difference from Group of Five schools like UTEP to TCU. It's a Power Five school, even though TCU. How long were they in the Big 12 at that point?
They got in the Big 12 in 2012.
Okay, so they've been in there for a few years already, and which is a different level. What was that experience like? Did you see a different level of athletes, especially within the DB group that you were playing with? And I don't know, just talk to me. I've always thought about that. I didn't play D1 ball, but
honestly, to me the biggest difference, and I've heard arguments on both sides, but from what I saw between UTEP and TCU was the difference in the line game on D line and O line. So that to me that was the biggest difference. I felt like, and of course I'm biased towards me, but I really felt like I was able to kind of compete with the DBs.
Yeah.
But maybe that's my mentality. And like I said, I'm biased towards me, but in drills and stuff, I was able to be step for step in my opinion. And I actually remember Patterson came over because I was beating the scholarship guy in our drills. I was just faster than he was. And Patterson came over here and ripped him a new one, telling him how's a walk-on beating you in this and that drill or whatever. And so, that kind of, made me puff up my chest a little bit more, but I really felt like I could have competed with them if I'd have stayed. But being a walk-on, there's just hurdles that you can't really control, when it comes to stuff like that. And I missed the whole fall where the whole coach could have known me on scout team and stuff like that. So it was a good experience. So I really did. I liked being at TCU. I was closer to home. Made a really good friend there. It was another walk-on, and me and him are as thick as thieves. We're tight as can be, and he's one of my great friends. And so got some good stuff out of it. I really did.
It's awesome. Okay, then you go to Tarleton. You go back home, go play for the what are they? The Texans in purple.
Texans.
Boys in purple, right? Walk me through what it was like to kind of come back home, and then just kind of where it all started. You get to, kind of end your football career.
Yeah. So, Tarleton kind of runs through the family because my mom went to Texas Tech, got her master's at Tarleton. My sister played volleyball at Tarleton and graduated from there. And then my brother-in-law, he played football at Tarleton as well in 2009, 2010. So, and, being in Stephenville, I did not want to go to Tarleton. They offered me to play, and their whole selling point was, staying closer to home. Well, I didn't want anything to do with that. Yeah. And honestly, I don't know if I would have gone to Tarleton if Coach Witten was not there, because this is the part about Coach Witten. I remember him, when we had our recruiting talks, we didn't talk about football. We just talked about life. It wasn't a stressful conversation every time he called me. It wasn't, how much you weigh in, how fast you run in, this stuff. It was just talking about deer hunting or fishing or just anything in general.
Oh yeah.
When I got to UTEP and finally I was signed and everything, I'm there in the summer. He could have, not talked to me anymore because he's a receivers coach and I'm a DB guy. He got me here. He doesn't have to talk to me anymore. First weekend, he invited me over to have dinner with him and his wife when he didn't have to. And so that always had a lasting effect on me with Coach Witten. So that's why I went to Tarleton. And my old high school buddies were still there when I got there and actually moved in with one of them. My mom owned a rent house. And so and I was away from him for 2 years, but kind of rekindled that. And there's some good things that come with it. There's some bad things that come with it too. I'm a firm believer you need to leave home for a while just to kind of figure out yourself. But I liked being there. It's a lot different. You're in the JV locker room as a walk-on. No, I mean, it's totally different. The equipment's not as good. You got to bring your own cleats sometimes, just stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
I liked Coach Witten, how he ran the program, and that's where I met Coach Patton. And like I said, like we were talking about earlier, he really shaped the way I look at defensive back and how I would coach that position. And honestly, I really enjoyed Tarleton because even within Stephenville, it's kind of its own little community in a way because you have a lot of kids coming from the DFW, anywhere really, because it's a cheap school, but it's a quality university. So you can be in Stephenville, but not be in it the way you grew up if you really wanted to.
Yep. No, and I will come back, but I agree with that because where I went to school, it was 60 miles away from my hometown, and that was where like all my rivals were. I went to camp growing up there my entire life. I was like, I'm never coming here. Like they were, I was like, I don't even know why. My dad convinced me to go on a visit, and for whatever reason, and it was the best experience that ever happened to me, and I loved it. But but it was for me, it was close. It was far enough, but it was also close enough where I could go home and do laundry, especially stuff like that. But also where I had my own life, my parents weren't there. But just the whole college experience being close to home, I do think is a positive. Once you've experienced other things, you always come back home. So, all right, so you transferred 2 times. You were at 3 different schools.
Yep.
Walk me through if you could like kind of go back and put all that your full experience, um, just in a simple explanation of what you learned and how you grew as just a man now. Is what do you think the biggest thing you learned from that whole experience was?
That's a good question. I'll give kind of 2 answers. From a football perspective, it was great because I got to see 3 different coaches. I got to kind of be a part of 3 different schemes. One scheme I knew really, really well, which was one at UTEP. TCU, Patterson, if you're a walk-on, doesn't really, it's weird how they teach it. They don't have a playbook because I think someone stole it one time or something. We're selling it out of their car or something like that. So they all dropped on the board. And so I didn't really get to learn all of that. And then I got to see how Coach Witten did it. And I talk about 3 different style of coaches. Sean Kugler, O-line, and the NFL coach, that very authoritarian. And Patterson is in his own way too. Offensive guy, defensive guy, and then you got Coach Witten, who's as laid back as can be until game day and when he gets angry. But got to see a lot of different ways how practice is done, stuff like that. From a personal side, probably sometimes the grass isn't always greener, but like I said, in my head, I don't know if I'd have been able to live with it if I'd have stayed at UTEP and not tried to make it at the Power 5. Yeah. And I think you learn sometimes you go for that dream, and it doesn't mean it's going to work out just because you committed 1,000% to it and this is what you want to do. That doesn't mean you're going to be a starter for TCU, And also, though, sometimes you got to reevaluate and saying, is this move really worth it? Because at UTEP, I was going to be a starting because they actually moved me down because we went from a 4.25 to a 3.4.
Mm-hmm.
Moved me down to the Sam linebacker, which was just an overhang guy, kind of like what our strong safety was in the 4.25. And so I got to learn that part of it, but understanding that it's not always greener on the other side, and then sometimes you're in a good spot without knowing it. So and like I said, I would have loved to stick through 4 years at UTEP and have that place be called home. And I made 2 really good friends there too, and I think that's the part that I kind of regret is not saying, hey, I went to UTEP. It may not be the most famous school in the world or be the best football program, but I could call that my own home, for 40. I wish I'd been able to do that. But now I don't. I mean, you say I can say I graduated from Tarleton, but I was only there for, a year and a half before I got my degree, or 2 years,
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff I missed out on.
Yeah. But that's okay though. I think, you going different places now, you're going to be able to, especially now as a coach, you're going to be able to just lay down wisdom for when you get to recruiting high school kids, and also going into the kids that are within your own team.
Yep.
Especially being a younger guy, we can have a deeper, not deeper, but just where our experiences were closer to their experiences. So we can coach them and teach them different things from what we learned, and hopefully, help them. I heard this guy say, everyone says the grass isn't always greener, but the grass is always green where you're at if you mow it and you water it. And so, like but it's very true. Like, you can make, it's not always greener. Wherever you are, pastors always say bloom where you're planted and all that stuff, but the grass is always green if you mow it and you water it. So, just being where you're at. So
Another thing on that is that I think one thing I lacked at that age when I was at UTEP is being able to look inside myself and look at my mentality. Because I kind of went to UTEP with kind of a negative mentality because I wanted to go to Texas. I wanted to go to the Blue Blood program because they were talking to me. I thought it was going to happen. And I wish I'd been able to kind of reset my thinking on stuff and look into my mind frame and reevaluate that. So that's kind of the same thing you were just talking about.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so you got done playing at Tarleton, right? And then when did you decide you wanted to coach? I mean, I know you talk about all these other coaches, and I think you had one thing that's always impressed me about you is I don't remember anything that I played in college. I remember like 2 coverages, and that's it. But I was
Yeah.
like, that's not how my mindset was. So I always thought it was awesome how you took so much from the coaches you played with. And I wish I would have, looking back, I wish I would have done that more.
Yeah.
So when did you know you wanted to get into coaching and coach football?
Man, so I would say, I don't know, it's hard for me to tell because I've always, even in high school, Coach Kevin Wilson, he was my DB coach, and that me and him had a real special connection really quick. And I knew then, like I always knew I wanted to play as long as I could.
Mm-hmm.
But I said to myself, once I'm done playing, I want to be a coach for sure. And so I knew that. And then I got to the Division I level, and I was like, man, I really want to coach at the Division I level. Like that'd be awesome. Like get to play in these cool places, get to be on TV, all that stuff. And it's just kind of started in high school, just the relationships that I've had, and even in college, I had some relationships that weren't that great. Not that they were negative, but we just didn't have the same connection. For some reason, me and my DB coach at UTEP, we got along fine. We just didn't always have the greatest kind of connection. We couldn't talk about personal stuff in the same way that I could with other coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to be a coach since high school, I guess.
I gotcha. Okay. So obviously Coach Witten was very fond of you, so it was easy for you to kind of get into that role. How did I got there right when you were still baling hay or something before you um, when I got there. But did you just go up and talk to him? Did you talk to him before the year started? How did you convince him to have him give you a chance, basically?
So with Coach Witten, I remember it was after the 18 season. I got hurt. Every year of football since I was playing in high school, I had an injury every year, and broken bones, concussions, shoulders, all of it. And it was after the 18 season. We just went on a run till I think it was the quarterfinals or semifinals, but I was hurt through all of it.
Yep.
I knew I had 1 year left because in D2 they go by semesters. So I was gonna go, what do you call it, part time in the spring of 19, so I could play in the fall of 20 or fall of 19 for my last year. And Coach Witten's known I've wanted to coach since he was recruiting me, and it was in January of 19. They called me up to host a recruit, and during that time to sign him.
Yeah.
And I walked in his office. We talked for a little bit. And I said, "Hey, Coach, obviously I want to get in coaching." I was like, "You already know that, and what should I be doing anything now? Because I know 19 is my last season." should I be doing anything? He goes, yeah. He goes, all the connections I made at UTEP playing for those guys and anybody I know, just email my resume and just say, hey, I'm looking for a GA spot after I'm done playing in 19. So just keep me in mind. Hope everything's going good. Sent that to I don't know how many people. I think even Gobi, when he was at Hawaii, Coach Gobi, I sent it to him. I don't think he responded to me though.
Just
But so I sent him that. Well, I go through part-time and I can't work out. I can't do spring ball. I can't do anything with the team. I can obviously work out and do that stuff on my own. But so Memorial Day weekend, I think, is that the one in May? Is it Memorial Day weekend?
Yep.
At the end of May, Coach Patton calls me and calls me in his office. I was like, this is kind of weird. And he sits me down. He starts talking. He goes, hey, Mook, we have a GA spot coming open. He goes, we know you want to get into coaching. He goes, we know you've been injured a lot. He goes, and I don't take this that we don't want you to play, because we obviously want you to play, because they're going to keep me on scholarship and everything. He goes, but it's open in case, you're thinking of getting into coaching right now just because of injuries and everything. And so I went to the Colonial Golf Tournament. I told him, hey, Coach, let me think about it for the weekend. Went to the Colonial Golf Tournament in Fort Worth, hung out, and came back on Monday. And I said, yeah, I want to be a GA. And so from when I was part-time, I was hauling hay at a feed store from March till then. And then, so yeah, they offered me the GA spot. And that was just me being kind of proactive before I even thought I was going to be coaching.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into Coach Witten's ear about it.
Man, did not know that. It's crazy experience right there.
So I still had 1 year left of eligibility, and I hung up the cleats. It's like, I'm getting into coaching.
Technically, you could always go back to D2 and still play.
I guess so, yeah.
That's how those D2 rules work. If you're within a window, you can go back and play. So I'll remember that.
I don't think they want me anymore. They got too many good athletes now.
Yeah, not Tarleton. Maybe another school. I'm not going to say where. Maybe another school. Okay, so now you weren't at Tarleton very long.
Not very long.
Let's go into kind of how we met, because our relationship, people always ask me, you still talk to Mookie? I was like, yeah, I talk to Mookie all the time.
Yeah.
Like, we were literally hung out together for like 3 weeks, and all we did was argue.
Yeah.
So, but we also I was coming off, I know my story, but I was coming off, getting let go, didn't have a job. I was out of a job for like 6 months. Coach Patton, luckily, Blake Brockett left, and he called me. He goes, hey, get back on your feet. Come take this job. I know it's not what you want, but come work with me again, and we're going to be good. So I was like, okay. My wife was convinced. So it came out. But I remember I get there, and all the other coaches are on vacation. And I don't know why I was there. And it was me, you, and Coach Chad Head, just sitting in the office by ourselves, not doing anything.
The AC wasn't working. The AC wasn't working.
Oh, yeah, the AC wasn't working. It was hot. We were breaking down Texas film. We were just doing a bunch of random projects for everybody because everyone was gone.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of where our relationship, I guess, sprouted. So what do you kind of remember of that time before, you left? We worked at camp. We had to stay in the dorm.
Well, so I remember the first time I saw you too. It was because I remember telling Coach Witten, like, I had to give my 2 weeks notice for the hay and feed ranch. I said, they still need me, yada, 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 yada. And he goes, okay, well, Saturday we have a camp. Be here. And I said, okay, because that's when you'll start. Well, I walk in the door. It's 7:30, and I see this guy. I think your hat was on backwards too.
Probably was.
And I was like, who is this dude? I remember we just walked by and said, hey, or whatever. And I walk in, and I didn't know you from Jim. I didn't know who the other guy was going to be. And then we get in there and we have our little meeting about the camp. And then all of a sudden I figure out you're the other DBGA. And so me and you, I remember our first conversation about what drills we were supposed to do for camp, because Patton just pretty much went, y'all run it. And then I we started talking and started hitting it off. And I remember us setting up tables in front of everything before camp started. And then we hit it off there and just had to, I think we even roomed together during camp too.
We were the only ones we had to stay the night with all these high school kids, and made all the pizza. And I tried to convince you guys we need to sell pizza so we can make some money. You guys didn't believe me. Then we walked away with like $200 each. Like, I don't and Yeah, we almost didn't give it to fam. It was great. It was a great time.
Yeah, we hit it off from there, and like you said, you're sitting in that office. I didn't see Patton, I think, 2 times before I left, and it was just me, you, Tate, Chadhead, and Coach Witten in there, just doing oddball stuff, breaking down Texas, LSU, all these other schools, and yeah, it was a short 3 weeks, but me and you for sure hit it off without a doubt.
All right, so you obviously left and you went to Tulsa. Kind of the right place, the right time, right? The,
Yep.
talked about a little bit about Tulsa. Like, I know we can talk about the DC and how he's your guy. But just
Mhm.
kind of talk about how that kind of went into place too.
So how I got the GA job?
Yeah, yeah.
So this came back into when I talked to Coach Witten and said, "Hey, how do I need to start looking for GA stuff? I know I want to get into college." Well, Coach Gillespie, the DC at Tulsa, he was my head coach at Stephenville High School. Gillespie knew me since I was in diapers. Like he's known me forever. Well, I sent him stuff, and he responded and said, "Hey, glad you're wanting to get into coaching. We don't have anything open right now, but if I hear anything, I'll let you know." Didn't hear from him for 6 months, and then it was a Tuesday after 4th of July. I'm sitting at the desk and I get a call from Coach Gillespie. In my mind, I go, the only reason he's calling me is for a GA job. He'd be calling me. And sure enough, he can be long-winded. He likes to tell stories. He's very methodical. After about 20 minutes in the conversation, he finally pops the question like he's asking me to marry him or something. Finally, hey, we have a GA spot open. And I said, Coach, I'd love to do it, but I gotta ask Coach Witten because it's getting close to camp.
Yeah.
Camp coming up. I was like, I gotta ask Coach Witten if I leave him, if I'll put him in the bind, then I won't go. But I want to. He goes, okay, talk to Coach Witten. Well, I talked to Coach Witten, and before I could even finish my sentence, Coach Witten's like, no, you need to go take it. You need to go do it. This be huge. So that's how I ended up getting the D1 GA spot. Old high school head coach who's now the DC there. And it's something I emailed 6 months earlier, and he just on me.
Amazing how things work out. I remember when you told me, first of all, I was pissed. And I was like, because I was like, I don't want to hang out with here with Coach Head all the time without you. Even though I love Coach Head. Coach Head's one of my good friends.
Yeah.
But because we just had a great time arguing all the time. And it's been a great season. But
Yep.
you were like doubting it. I was like, what are you talking about doubting it? You got to go. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Go sleep on a couch somewhere until you figure it out because you were worried about living and all that stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
just go. So now you're there. You left us at Tarleton. We were pretty good, but you know,
Yeah.
good times. But talk to me. Now you've been there for going into your third year. What's like the biggest thing you've learned at Tulsa? You've been around D1 ball, but now being a D1 GA, a lot of people talk about it. But what's like the biggest thing you've learned being there so far? Most impactful thing you've learned?
One thing that I've learned, and it's hit me because I didn't really have it in my college playing experience was a relationship with the players. That we're big on that at Tulsa, and it's for better and for worse. There's good and bad with that,
Yep.
But these coaches, these kids will come in and sit in these coaches' offices and actually talk, not just, hey, grades, lifting, homework, that kind of stuff. They really know each other, they know each other's families, all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I don't think you should share everything that's going on with your spouse to your players. So there's some boundaries and stuff, but really, really caring for them is something that I've seen our staff do. And our staff for the most part is younger guys, younger than 50, younger than 40. And that's always been their MO, is just caring for them. And I've also learned that there's more than one way to do it and still be successful. It may not be something I agree with because, as a GA, I know it all, right? I know everything.
Yeah.
So something I might disagree with, it's irrelevant because there's different ways to skin a cat. And that's something I've learned a lot too. And to be open-minded and be able to talk about things and talk about ideas and just say, hey, sometimes, and I'll be honest, they kind of, I have a decent voice here as GAs go, because Coach Gillespie lets me kind of speak, and he'll ask my opinion on stuff, which is awesome. It kind of, one morning when you're kind of feeling down, the DC asks you your opinion on something. It kind of perks you up for the rest of the day. It kind of makes you feel better. So they do a really good job of including everybody's voice. Obviously, some voices are weightier than others, but I get treated really well here at Tulsa, get taken care of too, because you hear all the horror stories of other GA spots, and I thankfully I haven't had any of those. I get treated really well here.
Yeah, for sure. No, but I think the whole relationship aspect of it, that's like, I think it goes back to. I mean, I hope you realize this now, but it goes back to one of the stories you talked about with Coach Witten, how he recruited you in that, and when you were at UTEP, and then when you got there, he invited you over to his house. That was one of Coach Witten's best things. He's a player's coach,
Yep.
loves his guys and puts his guys first, and it's the best thing Coach Rolo does here at Washington State. It's all about our guys, and that's, I think a lot of times in football, especially as coaches nowadays, there's so much money involved and different things, but we got to understand why we got into this. First, we love the game. The X's and O's are awesome, but I tell people all the time, I couldn't coach unless I had the players. The X's and
Yeah.
O's are boring after a while. I want to get to know my guys, and I take my role as a leader, whether you're a GA, whatever role you're in, I take that very highly of being a role model. And because you don't know, you never know who's watching you and how you react to every situation. Like, I still remember how my coaches reacted in high school, going back to college. Like, I know how they react to certain situations, and
Yeah.
you can have the biggest impact on kids for 75 years by being real, teaching them life lessons outside the game of football.
Yep.
Um, and I think that's awesome that you get to learn that from your staff. And like you said, we all think we have the answers until we get put in that situation, and then we might, fall back on what we know, what we've learned.
Yep.
There's always different ways to do it. We
Yep.
find new creative ways to teach and impact our guys. I think that's what makes this profession awesome, because in the end, we're teachers, and we got to teach them not always about football. So we'll teach them football. That's what we do well, but teaching them about life.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. I'm fired up that you're there. So
Well, and when I first got there, and my personality, like when I don't know you, I can be a little standoffish, and that's when got there early on. I was too busy worried trying to learn the defense and trying to learn how to break down film on Exos. I've never done it. It's always been huddle, and even at Tarleton, I didn't do it that much.
yeah,
I was learning all the computer stuff, being the tech guy, all this and that. It took me a while to really get to know everybody's name, and I'm terrible with names to begin with. And of course I had to take care of the defense first, and just being around them. Offense, I'm still learning those guys' names on some ends of it, but it was awesome when I finally, because I started developing a couple good relationships with a couple safeties, and it'd always be cool when they'd come in my office and we're just talking about whatever. It's not even football related, but they just come in. The fact that they're comfortable enough to come sit down with me while I'm doing some kind of task, it's pretty rewarding, and it's something simple. It's a 10-15 minute conversation, but 2 years ago they wouldn't be doing that. They'd just be walking by saying what's up. Now they're coming in and sitting down and want to talk. So that's rewarding in and of itself.
yeah. And I'm telling you, just wait till you get married and you have kids. I mean, for all the time we put into this, and not sleeping a lot and all that stuff, when you get to involve your wife and bring them over to your
Yep.
house, have time with them, I'm telling you, it's the best part of this profession. In my, games and everything, winning is awesome, but still being able to call, I'm still young, but being able to call guys I coached 5 years ago and
Yeah.
see where they're at and just talking to them and just reminiscing, it's one of my favorite things. And seeing them succeed and we're, chasing their dreams while I'm still chasing mine. Like,
Yep.
it's awesome. And it's it's why we do what we do. And I think as coaches, we can't lose sight of that, because that's
Yeah.
what, at least that's why I got into this, because I just loved it. And I loved getting to know guys. And well, the best thing for you is being able to coach. I know you get to help with special teams more. You get to know everybody.
Yep.
You need to know everybody on your team, because you got to figure out where they're going to fit within your unit. And that's
Yep.
what makes special teams, in my opinion, so special, because I know literally everybody on our team, because I have to. That will help you for sure right there as well. So,
Well, it's funny. We were having a conversation before our spring ball practice yesterday. Our DC kind of got down to the roots of it, of why do you play the game? And essentially everyone's answer was because it was fun growing up. And I think that's when you get into coaching for the right reason. For me, the reason I got into coaching is because of the few awesome relationships that I've had with prior coaches. That it's the same concept to me. You love playing football because it was fun. I want to coach because the coaches before me that they really impacted me, and so that's.
Sure. All right, in 5 years, where do you want to be in your career? How old are you? 25?
25.
Oh my gosh, to be young. All right, in 5 years, where do you want to be in your life?
Well, I want to hopefully be married by that point. I mean, and it helped when I was getting into college. I thought I'd find my wife in college and be married by 24, 23, but
It's okay.
the timeline's been pushed back. But hopefully by the time I'm 30, I'll find the one, because it's hard, especially at being a GA. Thankfully, I've had to move a lot, but a lot of guys, sometimes you do. And even when you're a position coach, you'll bounce around to 3 different schools in 5 years,
Yep.
And so hopefully I've found that at some point. And then as professionally, I want to be a position coach for sure. I'd love to be a DC, but in 5 years, that's a pretty lofty goal, depending on certain situations. But it's all about timing and all about how that stuff works out. But obviously, I don't want to be a GA anymore. But trying to get to the position coach title. But that's where I'd like to be.
That's a very long-winded answer, but I'll take it. I don't want you to lose sight on. Obviously, I'm an old GA, but don't lose sight. Enjoy the time of being a GA, because I think one of the things that I think we need to take the most from it is we can learn. There's not as much pressure on us to get stuff. I mean, there's pressure to get stuff done, but like recruiting, how it is coaching our guys, and just the pressure of having our own group and being responsible for something. It's not always there as GAs. We need to have that mindset for sure in everything that we do, but we need to learn, because as soon as you're done being a GA, there is no more learning. You can still learn, but you have to go and produce. And if you didn't take enough from your time learning, you're going to fail. And it might take you a few years to get back to where you want to be. And, looking back, I don't think I necessarily failed, but I don't think I learned enough early on in my career, how to handle different situations within like a staff. And that's been the best thing I've learned during these past 3 years is when to keep my mouth shut and when to stand up for what you believe in. And also, just the way I teach and progress my guys, and stuff like that. So good. All right. This is one of my last questions, Mook. I know you've been awesome, so I appreciate you taking your time to talk to me. But I've been kind of doing this study and asking different coaches on the best type of leadership style that they've been around and what they try to emulate. I've written a lot of papers in my undergrad on servant leadership. So I want to get your take on servant leadership and kind of what you think about it, and if you think it's one of the better forms of leadership that's out there.
I think it is, obviously, and we've kind of talked about it prior. To me, there's 2 aspects of leadership that are important, and I don't know if this one will go under servant leadership, but to me, a leader needs to be able to equip whoever he's leading with the tools necessary to do their job and not leave them shorthanded in whatever fashion that may be, whether it's football or running a company or whatever. For servant leadership, I think when you're able to see the guy or girl that you're working for who's leading you do tasks that seem too small for that position that the leader's in, I think is a huge thing. Like seeing a coach, pick up some trash off the field and put it in the trash can, or filling up a water bottle that needs to be filled up, or moving a dummy that needs to go somewhere. Hopefully that stuff doesn't have to happen, because that means some people aren't doing their jobs. But if like situations like that present itself, and also just like your leader being available to their players. I've seen a few coaches where that door is always closed in their office. It's almost like it's trying to get a meeting with the president.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of staffs that the door is always open, and I've been able to reap the benefits of that too. And that door open policy always came from Coach Witten, in my experience, and from Coach Kugler at UTEP. And that was a big deal to me. And just being like we were talking about earlier, it's that to be a servant leader, I think you have to have that relationship too with your players, and especially with everything that went on, this past year in the summertime, and just with COVID and everything, being available to your players and listening to them. I think listening is a huge part of being a servant leader. Is sometimes letting them talk and you just listening, because that does a lot. And like you said, learning when to kind of keep your mouth shut and just let kind of the conversation roll on without you always having to give your input on stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you said a ton of great things right there that I just want to touch on a little bit. But being available, I think is awesome. The wise old saying that we've all stolen is they won't do anything for you till they know that you care. But that's you being available, right? And just putting yourself out there. The door open policy, I think, is awesome. Especially within facilities now where it's just a football facility. We're all in there on the same team. Why not have your door open all the time?
Yep.
I think closed doors can also like send the wrong impression. But
Yep.
and I think the biggest thing I learned from my head coach in college was I remember after a game, we got back late. I was leaving the locker room, and my head coach was in there putting all of our jerseys into the washing machine and washing them. And I still have the picture in my head because fast forward 5 years later, I was at GA at that school, even as a full time guy. I was the one doing all that. And was I frustrated at times, like getting back at 4 a.m. and having to go put I had a special mix. I had to put it all in and put it in the washing. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We were on the bus for 10 hours and those jerseys were disgusting. But it's always like, all right, if this guy who recruited me, who I think is one of the best humans in the entire world, can do it, then I can shut up and do this right now. So, I think, for any young guy that could possibly be listening, it's just what you can never lose sight of that. And you can never lose your GA mindset when it comes to stuff. We don't always have to do the GA stuff, but just the GA mindset to me is you're behind the scenes. You get everything done to help your full-time guy you work for and help the team produce, and you do it best your ability, and you work no matter what the task is, you get it done because you're trying to show people you can do it. And you can't lose that sight when you don't have to do all that stuff anymore. You can do other things. So, yeah. Oh, sorry, I kind of rambled there. I get fired up about servant leadership.
Yeah, that's good.
I apologize. But okay. You're young. You've been coaching for basically 2 years.
Yeah.
If you can count last year, you can't even count it. So, what advice? I know you haven't done it, but what advice would you give any young guy kind of get into this profession, or that you would give yourself, when you were first getting into it?
And see this is kind of a hard thing for me because a lot of it I've been blessed with timing on everything. I haven't been that because I'll just kind of this is kind of a weird story, but I remember going to the AFCA and seeing all those resumes on those little tack boards of people just crawling to get something that I have, and I have to get 2 of them in less than a month. Everyone's looking for an AGA spot, and advice would to be is to, if you're playing right now, if you're a player, to really try to connect with the coaches and even just kind of tell them, hey, I really want to be a coach when I'm done playing. That's what got me the GA spot at Tarleton. Was that Coach Whitten knew that when I was at UTEP. Coach Whitten knew that when I was a senior in high school. I wanted to coach.
Yeah.
And making that known, and they love talking to you about it. I remember when I was talking to Patton about coaching and how he came up with his defense and this, that, and Patton could get long-winded. Me and him talked for an hour on that.
Oh, yeah.
Just striking up conversation about the profession with guys. And I really don't have any advice if you're not in the college football world right now. I know volunteering and interns, everyone's always trying to take those. So that's always a great start. But, and advice I give myself is, and it's pretty much what you said, is I remember when I came to Tulsa, I was trying real hard to kind of make my mark and tell them how much I knew and all that stuff. And when I look back on it, I kind of cringe because I sounded really dumb because I didn't understand what we were trying to do defensively yet. And I'm sitting here as a young GA who's just supposed to be typing in tags, and I'm sitting there giving my 2 cents on how we should do something when I didn't even fully understand the defense yet,
Yeah.
That's just me trying to make my mark on stuff. And sometimes sitting down and being quiet is most of the time is not the bad way to go about stuff like that.
No, and I completely agree. The being quiet part, I
Mhm.
think as young guys, especially when you're at a Division I school, you're around, I say it all the time here, we're around 10 other full-time guys who are in spots where we want to be. You have 10 opportunities every day to learn, even within other people on the staff. You can include the DFO and chief of staff and even the video people, because they're all where like you want to get a full-time job. They're all where you want to be. But you have a chance to observe them every single day and to ask them questions, you know, just about their story and about their life, advice they have for you, but just how they coach, watch how they just carry themselves, how they recruit. And you can take pieces from each person to make it your own, not copy someone, but take what you like, take what you don't like, and then make it into your own of who you're going to be when you get that opportunity.
Yep.
Whether that opportunity is back, D2, high school, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's still going to guide you to who you're going to be and how you're going to coach and influence young guys.
Yep.
I think a lot of people, we forget about that. Try to show what we know instead of just sitting back, being quiet, and just listening, just to how coaches talk and
Yeah.
just guys who have done it and are just intelligent and how they, because every coach is different, how they coach. Just I don't know. I'm talking about the same stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna really, and I think you can do that once you get a full time job. But that's one of the things I'll miss the most about being a GA, because I might not have all the same time that I would if whenever I get that opportunity. So.
Well, and one thing that I do, and you kind of talked about it earlier about like trying to learn everything as a GA and learn as much as you can. A lot of times I get overwhelmed at how much I don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with what's happened in the past year where there's clinics 365 all day, every day. And I'll sit there. I love listening to them because I want to be a better DB coach. And there's all these footwork stuff, the DB footwork king, this and that, and all these techniques and philosophies and stuff. And it's like, man, that stuff's all good. But one, you can't take all of that because one, it's too much for you and it's too much for the player if you try to heap that on the player.
Yep.
Always strive to learn, but don't get overwhelmed with trying to know every little thing about a position or a defense or a fit or stuff like that. Don't get overwhelmed by it. That'd be something I'd give another young coach trying to get into this.
For sure. I think you're right, because then you know all this stuff, but can you teach it? And
Yeah.
the thing our quarterback coach told me is you got to make it your own. If you keep copying other people, when it comes down to it and you don't have an answer, you better have an answer. And if it's not yours, you may not have that answer. But if it's your stuff and you created it and it's your thoughts, and obviously taking bits and pieces from people, but you'll be able to figure out an answer and how you can help your guys, whatever that the problem is. So
Yeah.
well, all right, Mookie, I appreciate you, man. I think you're on here because you're young, and I know I like to kind of get sometimes older people because their stories and stuff, but from the time I met you, I think you're going to be a great coach, and you challenged me, and I just loved arguing and talking about things with you all the time. So you have a very bright future, and I can't wait to see what you do and how many lives you're going to impact in this awesome profession that we get to do every day. So
I appreciate it. That means a lot. The same for you, Mac. I ask you 100 questions a day on coaching, how to deal with stuff. So I'm learning from you.
well, typically it's about golf though, and I don't,
Golf too. And that's important too.
Well, all right, man. Well, I appreciate everybody out there listening. This is another episode on the 3-1 podcast with Coach Mac, with our guest Mookie Carlile. You guys have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.